Welcome to the world of Roland electronic percussion. I'm Steve Fisher, your host, and I'm going to show you the Boss DR660 Dr. Rhythm. I'm not only going to show you the DR660's most powerful and popular features, I'm going to give you some tips and some tricks on how you can start making music and having fun with your DR660 right away. But first things first, I'm sure you noticed a white piece of paper falling out of the packaging as you were relentlessly ripping it open. That is your warranty card. And what you probably want to do is fill that warranty card information out and send it to Roland right away, and for a couple of reasons. First of which, it registers you as the owner of your DR660, it validates your warranty, and also you will be put on the list and be given a free subscription to the Roland Users Group magazine, as well as the fact that we can also keep you updated on Roland's latest product information and also events that might be happening in your area. The Boss DR660 definitely is the sports car of drum machines. And by that I mean there's so many great features that it does have, and no other drum machine does those features for such an attractive price. It has features such as 255 16-bit CD quality sounds, extensive editing. It also has built-in digital effects, built-in digital reverb, delay, chorus, and flanging. It's remarkable. There's also 39 different drum kits you can select that those 255 sounds are made up into. As far as the programmability goes, it is also 250 patterns that can be programmed in actually up to 100 different songs. There's also another great feature, 16 pads. They're all velocity sensitive with aftertouch. And that really is amazing. Not only that, but on the output stage for audio, there's not only the stereo outputs, there's also 2 individual outputs as well. All those features together make the DR660 an extremely versatile drum machine, using it as a sound module for sequencing or for playing from pads. It makes it wonderful for even just recording onto analog tape. It's great for live performance as well, besides also using it as a practice tool. Let's start off with looking at the front panel of the DR660. If you'll notice, in the lower right-hand corner, we have our 16 velocity-sensitive pads with aftertouch. Also above that, you can see dedicated buttons for flam, roll, tempo change, where this is where we change our drum kits, and dedicated buttons for our effects, reverb and chorus. Over on our left, we have other function buttons that are in white. They supply us with things like getting from different songs to patterns and our MIDI and utility and whatnot. And also a pad bank button underneath that. Next to that, we also have a 10-key pad. Something very important are our up and down buttons and our cursor right and left buttons, those long buttons down there. Also down here, you notice easy tape recorder style controls, forward, backwards, reset, enter, stop, start, and record. So you can see it's very well laid out, and also the big alpha dials up on top for entering data, and also our volume knob are very easy to get to. Okay, let's start off, first of all, if you're anything like me, you go ripping into products and you start digging through them until you get stuck, and then you maybe pull out the manual and take a look at it and find out where you went wrong. Just so we all start together at the same time, what I'd like you to do is reinitialize your DR660. And what I mean by that, again, is putting it back into the form in which it came as soon as you pulled it out of the box. Now, unlike some products where you maybe power down and hold down some keys and power up, to initialize the DR660, it's a separate utility button. It doesn't require any powering up or powering down. What we're going to do is initialize the unit, and that means bring it back to its factory standard position coming out of the box, and that's very easy to do. So there's a utility button on your left right here, and if you push utility, you'll see the display up on top will say 1, it says roll. What we want to do is go to the 8th function in our utility, and by doing that, you're going to use our cursor keys, and we're going to use the right-hand cursor key. Push it there, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It says initialize, initialize all, and all is flashing. And to do that, you simply push the enter button, the little round button right down there. Push that. It asks, are you sure? And we're sure. And it says done. Now it's back just the way it was when we first got it out brand new out of the box. Now let's look at something, first of all, with the DR660. Let's get into talking about the pads, which we did before. Let's talk about some of the functions. You'll notice we have the pads, And they're also velocity sensitive, which means we can make them different volume levels, which is great. It becomes very expressive for entering our patterns. Well, also remember, if you notice up here, we had flam buttons, which give us a nice flam, and roll buttons. Now, before I mentioned that the pads are velocity sensitive with aftertouch. And aftertouch means you can do something after you've already touched the pad. In this case, we can make a roll actually crescendo. And that can be very expressive as well. There's our flam and roll buttons. All the different sounds are grouped into drum kits. And by simply pushing the drum kit button, it will access drum kit. It will say kit name, and then it'll give me a name. This is standard. And there I can see I've actually got 39 different drum kits. Just by selecting any one, I can play the sounds from them. If I want to hear some different sounds, just turn it. Maybe there's the TRO 808. Or if I want to play some jazz sounds. You have those different, you even have jazz brush. A lot of different sounds. Now you'll notice some of the sounds sound very big. And how that's done is not only in a drum kit, not only do we have the 16 pads, but we have what's also called a pad bank A and B in each drum kit. For example, if you go to the pop drum kit, play the kick, you hear two sounds. In the upper, very, very upper part of the display, it will say pad bank in either A or B, or in this case, both of them, A and B, are illuminated. By using the pad bank button, I can select either one. There's the kick drum. There's B. There's that sound. Push it again, and it's A and B together. So actually, I'm working with 32 different pad banks in each kit. And that's wonderful. We can stay in the same drum kit and access so many different sounds, 32 different sounds that way. And a lot of the sounds use that. For example, another interesting drum kit that you might want to try is called Crossfade. It's kit number 28. And using the roll button, you can actually hear there's two sounds, and they crossfade. So I'll use the roll button. And using aftertouch, you can hear the second sound. Listen to the sound number 3, it's called bell. Listen to how it goes from a ride to the bell sound. So you can see how very effective and very expressive that feature can be. As you go through the drum kits, you'll also notice things, for example, there's delays used, some of our effects are used, and also something very interesting that I need to point out to you is some of the bass sounds. The DR660 has bass sounds. That's a slap bass. We also have a synth bass. So there's quite a variety of sounds in there. If you want to hear all the sounds, for example, there's a built-in demo song that's been done. And if you'd like to hear that, it really goes through all the different sounds. You'd simply go up to Song. Make sure you're in song mode. There's pattern mode and song mode. And simply turn the data dial all the way to the very end. Actually, it's pattern number, there's 99, then 100, Arsenal. And the demo is done by a really swell guy. Anyways, getting back to it, if we go back, we have all our different sounds. Now let's look at some of those different sounds. We can layer, we can do all those things. Let's pretend that we want to start to put together a pad bank. And let's say, for example, let's go back to our drum kit, our standard drum kit. Let's say we didn't like that snare drum, and we want to change that snare drum. Putting together our own custom kit, if you will. And that's very easy to do. One of the things that I can do, how I do that, is going up into where it says pad, P-A-D, pad. If I push that, it says assign. And do you want to assign a sound? And I'm going to say sure. Whenever it gives you a question mark, what you can do is push enter, and there's the name of the sound in the display. LA fat snare. Crash, closed hi-hat, claps, side stick. And it's very easy to do. The only thing I need to do is turn the data dial. So you can hear how that's very easily done. I've just now switched that snare drum and that drum kit. Now, again, we are in pad bank A of that drum kit. I could go to pad bank B. There's a lot of percussion sounds, and maybe assign some different sounds there as well, or even combine them if I want to. So anyways, that works out very nicely. That's how you can get to all your different sounds and changing sounds on the pads. Now let's do a little bit of sound editing. Let's show you how to do that. One of the things we want to do again is go to pad, push pad, and let's say we want to edit some of the sounds on our drum kit. Say they're not quite to our taste and we want to maybe tune them or do some different things. I'll show you do that. Number 1 was assign. If you cursor to the right, number 2 says level. And that basically deals with your volume level. How loud do you want that sound to be? If your cursor to the right again, the third parameter is pitch. You can actually go up 2 octaves in 10-cent increments, or down 2 octaves in 10-cent increments. So now that sound doesn't hardly sound anything like a ride cymbal, and you can create different effects and a lot of very interesting sounds that way. I can push 0, 0 on my 10 keypad and enter, and I'll go right back to where I was. Let's go to the next parameter, cursor right, decay. Long decay, or I can shorten it. Kind of like, if you want to, sounds like you put too much duct tape on your cymbal. Okay, bring that back up to 0. There's also nuance, and this is a great feature. Nuance basically lets me decide, for example, for the cymbal, lets me decide where on the cymbal I'm going to play. If I have a cymbal, just like a real drummer does, plays on different parts of the cymbal, I can decide that. And you can hear the difference. There's the edge of the cymbal, and I'll move towards the bell. So that's a great feature to have. For the drums, it basically thins or fattens out a drum sound. So you get the idea there. There's also panning. I can pan it anywhere in the stereo field, all the way from left to right. And there's also a couple other features. You can set the different curves for the pads, different curve rate, and also change the drum kit name. If you made up your own drum kit, I can change it to Steve's drum kit if I want to. So that's in a nutshell, that is the basic sound editing. The last part of our sound editing deals with the effects, the reverb, delay, chorus, and the flanging. And that's done very easy. Like I said before, we have dedicated buttons up here, reverb and chorus. For example, we can push the reverb button. The first thing you'll see in the display is all. And that is the amount of reverb on all the sounds. I'm going to leave that where it was, but if you want a specific sound, like say for example, that snare drum sound, you wanted to adjust the level, push the snare drum and just adjust the data dial for the right value. There's no reverb. There's lots of reverb. So we have an effect send for each sound in the DR660, which is really incredible. Now if you want to even edit the effects a little bit more, simply push the effect button, it's right here. And we'll even come up, the reverb type is hall. We actually have 3 different types of reverb. There's hall, there's room, and there's plate. Plate is a little bit brighter, and I would suggest that for using that with percussion. There's also your delay. Even there's some panning delay functions. Let's go back to our reverb hall. Let's say you wanted more reverb. If your cursor to the right, you'll go to the other effect parameters. So if cursor to the right, number 2 is reverb time. If I increase that using the data dial, you can hear I have a nice long reverb. If I cursor to the right again, there's even a low-pass filter. And you can hear how the low-pass filter affects. So that's great too. Also, if we were dealing with delay, we've got delay feedback in our chorusing. So for example, if I just quickly went to delay, cursor off to the right, so we've got those different types in chorus and chorus step. It's a very effective effects processor, very complete effects processor built into the DR660. So that's really great. Let's move on to the next portion, and that portion is actually starting to look at all the different patterns that we have. Up here again, this button is song and pattern, so if I push it, I can either be in song mode or pattern mode. For example, for pattern mode, one of the things that I can do is I've got all my preset patterns, and they're even labeled here. For example, if I wanted a samba type pattern, you can see in the display it says samba, and I can push start. There's even a fill pattern for a samba. It says samba F for fill. There's even a V for variation. And that's really terrific, even another fill. One of the things I can do that's really great to be able to do, so I'm going to go back to my original pattern here, just an 8-beat. Using the stop button, there's a stop and start, and then we have forward and backwards. I can use the backwards and forwards buttons to actually do what's called real-time pattern change. In real time, I can change the pattern. For example, I'll start it, and if I go forward, push the forward button, it will do a drum fill, or use the fill pattern, and then go into a variation pattern. If I push the backward button, it will fill again and go back to my original pattern. Take a listen. Or if I just want to switch immediately to the variation pattern, I can push the start button again. So that's a really neat way to be able to get into programming and hear some of your different patterns together. And again, just select your style that you want and then push start, and away you go. Now let's say we want to create our own patterns, which would be a thing we might want to do. So I'm going to go actually to an empty pattern. Let's pick pattern anywhere above 100 is empty. Let's just, for fun, pick pattern 120. And it's very simple. There's the record button. I push record. You can see quantize is flashing. That quantize actually is, it will straighten out notes for me if I want it to, if I just want it to be quarter notes or eighth notes. So it actually straightens out my pattern for me if I want to. And you can experiment with that. I'm going to cursor over, and it says beat length. Now it should say 4 in your display. And what you want to do is you can, that which would be 1 bar of 4/4, you can make it 3 for a 3-bar pattern. Now it doesn't do bars as far as so many bars. What you do is think in your head, for example, if I wanted 2 4-bar patterns, 2 4-beat patterns, I would actually have a total of 8 beats. And so that's what you do. You would just turn the beat length up to 8, and that would give you 2 patterns that are in 4/4 time. I'm going to just use a single pattern, just 4 beats, which is 1 bar long. And at this point now, the record light's on. What I need to do next is select my drum kit. So at this point now, I'm going to select which drum kit I want. And let's go up here to kit number 27 with the synth bass sound. I'm going to take it out of record right now just so I can hear my sounds. Because you might at some point want to record a pattern with bass in it. So remember we had pad bank A and B in each kit. Let's go to pad bank B where the drums are. There's all our drum sounds. And then pad bank A is our bass sounds. Okay? So let's go to pad bank B, push record. Let's make sure our drum kit, we need to make sure our drum kit is on that. So the record button's lit, and then select your drum kit. That's very important. Otherwise you might record a different drum kit than you originally wanted to. Okay, record, pad bank B. Okay, I'm ready to go. There's my metronome. 2, 3. If I want to add more sounds, I can stop it. Try sounds, let's add a tambourine. Now there's our drum part. Now we want to add the bass part. Go to pad bank A, so just A is lit. So you get the idea there. I can push record, and I can start to play my melody. And you can keep it going and hum the rest of the song if you want. So that's basically how you can do that, and it's combining both of those pad banks right there and incorporating bass, which is really very interesting. Now after I get done recording my different patterns that I want to put together, I can put them together in a song. And that, what it basically does is you're taking all these patterns and pretend them as little building blocks. And what you want to do is build them into a song. So for example, one of the things that's very helpful to do, a lot of times what I will do is take, for example, I'll take a pen and paper and I'll write down my pattern numbers. Like for example, maybe pattern 120 is a basic pattern. And maybe 121 is a fill pattern. And 122 is with percussion. You get the idea there. And if you keep track of those, the next thing I can do then is think, how am I going to build my song? Maybe you want pattern 120. Maybe you want it 2 times. And then maybe you want a drum fill. And then maybe you want to go into the part where you have a lot of percussion added, and so forth. And you use these as building blocks. That way you know when it's time to enter your patterns to make a song, you know exactly what you need to do. So that would end up being part of your song. And that way you know exactly how long you need to make it and whatnot. It really helps out a lot. Can't stress enough how writing things down like that helps. But there's also an easier way to enter patterns into a song if you want to, and that is doing it in real time. Before I showed you the real-time pattern change, where we use the forward and the backward buttons to go from fill to variation back to the original. Now sometimes calculating things out in paper like this takes a lot of thinking. You have to think in your mind. If you're thinking of a song, you know, yeah, and you keep thinking, oh yeah, drum fill there. And that's sometimes very difficult to do and time-consuming. If you want to do it in real time in your head, while you could think of the song in your head or even playing along with it, you can do that by simply pushing record. And as soon as I push start, it'll start off it'll start me off with the first pattern, which is fine, and I'll use the forward and backward buttons to program my song. So as soon as I push start, it will start me off with a pattern, and I'll use the forward and backward buttons and the start button to toggle back and forth between the fills and the variations, thus building my song in real time. Take a listen. Here we go. I had record going, and I'm going to push start. Let that go. 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, and drum fill to my variation. 2, 2, and then back to it. Now, that should have recorded just the way I did it, and it should play back. So if I'm ready to play this back, there's song number 2 that we've got going, and here we go. I'll push start, push reset just in case, make sure I'm at the beginning, and I push start. 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2. Should be a fill coming up. Here we go to the variation. And the fill back to the original. And a little bit of basic and then variation. So you get the idea. You can start to put all those patterns together and do it in real time, which saves you a lot of time and also really ensures that your song is going to come out to the right length. Obviously, we couldn't get into everything that the DR660 has to offer. There's many other features. There's step time you can look at, and as well as its advanced MIDI functions. I would strongly recommend that you do take a look at that as well. Use your manual as a reference guide, and also for certain things that you might be having problems with. But that should get you in the ballpark and get you started having fun and making music and songs with your DR660.